Okay, today's video is going to go over handout 3.3, which is called point slope form. Before we look at the first question, I'm just going to remind us real quick. From last time, we were given slope and we were given an intercept, and we were able to use y equals mx plus b to plug those guys in and get an equation. So for example, if your slope is 4, that would go in the m spot. If your y-intercept is 9, that would go in your b spot. So then we would say y equals 4x plus 9. 4 is your slope, 9 is your intercept. That is our slope-intercept equation. So again, that's what we did last time. Today's going to look a little bit different. So if you look at the first question, it says Leo knows the slope of a line is -4. So we know that's going to be our m value. And the line also passes through the point -7, 18, which notice this is just a random point. It's not an intercept because an intercept would start with a 0. So this is just some other random point that's going to be on the line. So without doing any calculations, can Leo easily write an equation for the line in slope-intercept form, y or y naught? So remember what we just talked about. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. And what we need is the slope and the y-intercept. So for Leo's problem, we have the slope of -4, so that one's good. But the problem is we don't have our y-intercept because, again, this is just some random point. An intercept is supposed to start with a 0. So because we don't have the point, no, without any calculations, we cannot write it in slope-intercept form because we need the y-intercept, which is your b value. So if you're not given the intercept, you can't just jump into y-intercept form like we did last time. There we go, that should help. Okay, so we're going to have something called point slope form. Point slope form is when we write the equation of a line, and you easily know two things. You know the m value, which is the slope, and then you're just given some other random point, kind of like we were up here. It's not the y-intercept, it's just some unknown point, x comma y. So if we remind ourselves of our slope-intercept form right here, remember m is the slope. We definitely want to make sure we have the slope. We know b is the y-intercept. X and y are a little bit different this time. X and y is going to be your point. So x is going to be the x value of your point. And then y represents the y value of that same point. Anytime you're given a point, you're given the x and y. Kind of like up here, so -7 was our x, 18 was our y. So those are now going to go in our x, y position, and b is what we're going to be trying to find this time. So let's look at an example. So number 1, we're given a random point. Again, not an intercept because it doesn't start with a 0. It's just some random point on the line. We are given the slope, though. It tells us the slope is 1/4. So I'm going to remind ourselves real quick. Our equation is y equals mx plus b. B is your y-intercept, which we don't know. X is the x value, which is going to be the first one of your point. M is your slope, which it gives us, and y is the y value of our point. So we're going to go ahead and plug in all the stuff we know into our equation. So we have y equals, so I'm going to plug in the y value of my point, which is 3. So we're going to say 3 equals m, which is our slope, so I'm going to plug in 1/4, times x, which it gives us as 8, and then plus, we don't know b. That's our y-intercept. That's what we're trying to find, so we're just going to leave it as b. So again, we plugged in everything we knew. We knew our slope, and then we took the x and y from the point that it gave us, and we plugged them in. So now what we have to do is solve for b. So I'm going to draw my line down, and I'm going to have to write kind of tiny. So if we're solving for b, we need to move this out of the way. But before I try to move this, we're going to combine. We can do 1/4 times 8. So 3 is going to stay 3. Keep your equal sign on your line. And 1/4 times 8 is 2. And then I'm going to drop my plus b. So I did 1/4 times 8 to give me 2. And then again, we're solving for b, so the opposite of positive 2 is minus 2 to both sides. 3 minus 2 is 1. Sorry, I squished. I'll write smaller next time. 2's cancel out, and then I drop my b, which tells me my b value is 1. So my y-intercept for this one is going to be 1. All right, let's look at another one. So again, I'm going to remind ourselves we're still using y equals mx plus b. So this one tells us we have a slope of -2, so that's going to go into our m spot. And then our point, -6, 12, -6 is the x, and 12 is the y. And then since I'm color coding, I'm just going to go ahead and put my m right next to the -2. Okay, so when I go to use my equation, we're going to start with y. So y was 12, so we're going to say 12 equals m, which is -2, times x, which is -6, and then plus b, which we don't know, so we'll just put plus b. That's what we're trying to find. So we plugged in y equals, plugged in m, plugged in x, trying to find b. So again, we're going to go and draw our line. And before we start moving stuff, we want to go ahead and simplify this. -2 times -6 is positive 12. And then I'm going to drop my plus b. And then on this side, I'm going to drop this 12 because we didn't do anything with it yet. Keep your equal sign on the line. So if I'm trying to solve b, I need to move this 12. We're going to do a -12 on both sides. Now don't let this throw you off. 12 minus 12 is just 0. Equals, those 12s cancel out, and we drop our b. b equals 0, which means the y-intercept for this one is going to be 0. If you're feeling confident, you can go ahead and pause this while you work on number 3. If you still need some help, though, keep rolling along, and I'll go through this one. So again, my equation is y equals mx plus b. The x is going to come from the x value of my point, which is -2. The y is going to come from the y value of my point, which is -11. The m is coming from my slope, which is right there. And then we don't know b. That's what we're trying to find. So our equation starts with y equals, so I'm going to plug in my y, -11 equals m, which is 5/2, times x, which is -2, plus b, which we don't know, so we're just going to put plus b. Again, draw my line. I'm solving for b, so I'm going to go ahead and simplify this first. 5/2 times -2, which you can put in your calculator, is going to be -5. And then I'm going to go ahead and drop my plus b, and then my equals -11 from this side. And then now we can just solve. I'm solving for b. The opposite of -5 is +5. So I'm going to do a +5 on both sides. Sorry, I wrote kind of big again. We have -11 plus 5, which is -6. 5's cancel out, and we drop our b, which means my y-intercept for this one is -6. Now I would highly encourage you to go ahead and pause it now and try this one on your own first, and then go ahead and play it once you're ready. I'm going to go a little bit faster on this one though. So we're still using the same equation, y equals mx plus b. And then we're going to go ahead and just jump right in. So we're going to start with our y, which is 0, equals m, which is 9, times x, which is the first part of your point, so that's 1, plus b, because we don't know it. Make sure you set it up right. Then we're going to draw our line. I'm going to simplify first. 9 times 1 is just 9. Drop my plus b, and then drop my 0 from this side. Don't let the 0 throw you off, it's just a number. So if I'm solving for b, the opposite of positive 9 is negative 9. So I'm going to do a minus 9 on both sides. 0 minus 9 is negative 9. These cancel out. Drop my equals b. So the y-intercept for this one is going to be negative 9. Okay, now we're going to kind of put all these together. So remember, our goal is to eventually write a y equals mx plus b equation, which we couldn't do because we didn't have the y-intercept, but we just went through and found all the y-intercepts. So we're going to put it together. So looking at number 5, it tells us to look back to question 1, which is this one. We want to write a full equation for this one. So remember, the slope it gave to us, it told us the slope was 1/4, so m is 1/4. And then remember, we found b, which is the y-intercept, is 1. So we're going to put it all together. We're going to say y equals the slope, which is 1/4 x, plus my y-intercept, which is 1. Notice we don't use the x and y anymore. The x and y was only to help us find our b. So once we have b, we just go back and plug it in like we did last time. So this one tells us to look at question number 2, which is right here. Remember, it gave us m, the slope, it was negative 2. And then we found that the b value, or the y-intercept, is 0. So now we have all we need to write slope-intercept form. We would say y is equal to negative 2x plus 0, which is kind of weird to say plus 0, so we would want to simplify this a little bit and just say y equals negative 2x. We don't actually need the plus 0. Okay, I would encourage you to pause here and go ahead and try 3 and 4, and then when you're ready, go ahead and play again. For number 3, the slope, again, it gave it to us, was 5/2. We found the y-intercept was negative 6. So we're going to put it all together and say y is equal to 5/2x. And then you could write plus negative 6, but I'm just going to write minus 6. It's the same thing. Question number 4 was this one. So the slope it told us was 9. The y-intercept is negative 9. We found that. And then we put it all together. Y equals 9x minus 9. So this kind of broke it up for you where we solved b first and then we went back to write the equation. But normally, you're going to have to do it all in one step. So if you look at these right here, it gives you a random point and it gives you the slope, so you have to put everything together. We're going to have to plug in our x and y to find b like we did up here. And then our answer this time needs to actually be the equation like we did over here. So we're going to combine these boxes together. Okay, so again, we want to write an equation in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. We have m, but instead of b, it just gives us a random point, so we're going to have to go back and try to plug some stuff in. So first, we're going to identify that my slope is positive 5, so that's my m. The first number in your point is your x value, and the second number in your point is your y value. So we're going to go back to our y equals mx plus b equation and plug in everything we know so we can solve for b. So our equation starts off with y equals, so y is 3. So we're going to say 3 is equal to m, which is 5, times x, which is 2, plus b, which we don't know, so we just say plus b. I'm going to go a little faster now that we've seen a couple of them. We're going to draw our line. Before we move this, we're going to simplify. 5 times 2 is 10. Drop plus b, and then we're going to drop our 3 and our equal sign from this side. We're solving for b. The opposite of plus 10 is minus 10 from both sides. 3 minus 10 is negative 7. 10's over there cancel out, equals b. So we found our y-intercept, which is negative 7. But remember, our goal here is to write the full equation, so we have to go one more step. We have our slope, which was 5. We just found our y-intercept, which is negative 7, which means we're ready to go. We would say y equals m, which is 5, x plus b, which is negative 7. And that is my equation in slope-intercept form, and that's what it looks like when you put it all together. You use your x and y to solve for b, and then we go straight in and plug it in so we can get our equation. Okay, we're going to go faster through 7, and then you're going to go ahead and try number 8. So 7, we have our x, negative 1, our y, which is 5, and our m, which it tells us is negative 1. So we're going to just start plugging stuff in. Y equals, so 5 equals, m, which is negative 1, times x, which is also negative 1, plus b. We're going to draw our line and we're going to solve. Simplify first. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Drop the plus b, and then drop your equals 5 from this side. The opposite of positive 1 is negative 1, so I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. And 5 minus 1 is 4. 1's cancel out. Drop your b. Remember, though, that wasn't what it asked us for. We have to write the full equation. So we have our slope, which is negative 1, and our intercept, which is 4. So we're going to put it all together and say y equals negative 1x plus 4, which is a perfectly acceptable answer, but as a reminder, we don't actually have to write the 1. So if you were taking a test, the multiple choice option would actually look like y equals negative x plus 4, but those are the same exact things. All right, again, I would highly encourage you to go ahead and pause the video so that you can try number 8. I'm going to go through that one even faster than we have been this whole time, so give it a try first. So we have our x, our y, and our slope. Don't let the fraction scare you. So we have y equals m times x plus b. I'm playing a game over here trying to change my colors that fast. Draw your line. Go ahead and simplify. Again, don't let this scare you. Just use your calculator. 9 over 4 times negative 4 is just negative 9. Drop the plus b and drop your negative 6 from this side. The opposite of negative 9 is positive 9, so we're going to do a plus 9 on both sides. Negative 6 plus 9 is 3. 9's cancel out. Drop your b. We have our slope. We have our y-intercept. So we're ready to write slope-intercept form. Y equals 9 over 4x plus 3. And that is what it looks like all put together. I know it's kind of a lot of work. If you look at the last one here, Camden is trying to write an equation in slope-intercept form like we were just doing, and he's given the points 3, 7, and 5, 17. So he wants an equation that goes through both of these points. He's trying to use y equals mx plus b, but he's not sure what to plug in for m. So remember, previous to this, so like handout 3.2, we were given this, we were given the slope and we were given the intercept and we just had to plug it in. This time, we were given the slope and we were given a random point, which means we had to plug our point in and find the y-intercept. So we were given slope, we had to find y-intercept. Now, we're not really given anything. We're not given the slope, we're not given the y-intercept, we're just given the 2 random points. So the first and most important thing is we have to figure out how to find the slope. If you remember from one of our first pages of notes, I think it was 3.1, we can find the slope between 2 points using the equation y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's how we find the slope between 2 points. So we're going to use these 2 points and plug them here to start by finding our slope. So we've got, what am I using? Green for x. So this is x1 and y1 because it's our first point. And then this will be x2 and y2 since it's the second point. So when I go to plug it in here, I would say y2, which is 17, minus y1, which is 7, over x2, which is 5, minus x1, which is 3. And we would go ahead and simplify. 17 minus 7 is 10. 5 minus 3 is 2. 10 over 2. And we want to go one step further and say 10 over 2 can be simplified to 5. So we just found that our slope was 5, so I'm going to go ahead and write that maybe over here. We found that our slope was 5, but we still don't have the y-intercept. Again, we're just given 2 random points, not the y-intercept. So now we're going to do the same thing we did up here because now we have our slope. And we're going to use a random point to go ahead and find our b, but notice we have 2 points. You can pick either one. It actually doesn't matter. So pick whichever point looks best to you. My suggestion would be this one because it has the smaller numbers, which means the math might be a little easier, but it truly doesn't matter which one you pick. So if I pick this one, again, we're doing the same steps we just did up here. I would say y equals, so 7 equals, m, which we just found was 5, times x. Now remember, since you use the 7 for your y value, you have to use 3 for your x. You can't mix and match. So we're sticking to this point. So I'm going to plug in 3 for x, plus, and then remember we don't know b. That's the whole point of us doing this. So we're just going to put plus b. And then I'm going to solve. 5 times 3 is 15, plus b, oops, and then drop my equal 7. And then I'm going to do minus 15 from both sides. 7 minus 15 is negative 8. Cancel out, drop your b. And then we just found that b was negative 8. So I'm going to go ahead and put it over here with my slope. We found from the first step that our slope was 5. We just found that the b, or the y-intercept, is negative 8. So now that we have our slope and we have our y-intercept, we're ready to write our answer. So we would say y equals our slope, 5, x, and then our intercept, minus 8. So this problem is kind of your worst case scenario. You're not given your slope, you're not given your intercept, you have to find everything. So always start by finding your slope first, it's the most important. Once you find your slope, you're going to go back and use either of those points, it doesn't matter, to find your b value. And then you can go ahead and write down your equation. All right, go ahead and flip to the back. We're going to go ahead and look at question 11. It's kind of like what we just did. So number 11 is asking us for slope-intercept form, which means we need the slope and we need the y-intercept. But all it gives us is these 2 random points, which means we're going to have to find our slope first, and then we're going to have to go back and find our intercept. So let's start by labeling. This is my first point, so I'm going to label it x1, y1. And then this is my second point, so I'm going to label it x2 and y2. So remember, step 1, always find your slope first. So we're going to use the same formula we did on the back side. Maybe let's write it up here. That's your y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And it's at the very top of your paper if you need it. So we're going to say m equals y2, which is negative 3, minus y1, which is negative 5. So you need to be careful because we had the minus from the equation, and then we have another negative 5. So you kind of have a little double negative right there. Over x2, which is negative, x2, which is 12, my bad, minus x1, which is 8. And then you can put that in your calculator all at one time. And you will get 1 over 2. So my slope is 1 over 2, which means I'm actually going to write it over here. I just found my slope is 1 over 2. So then my second step is going to be to find my intercept, which is my b value. So remember, you get to pick which point you want to use. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to go ahead and use this first one. You can use the second one. You should get the exact same answer. So if I use this first one, remember I start with y. So we're going to say y equals m, which we just found was 1/2, times x. Now remember, since I use this y value, I have to use this x value, so 8, plus b, which we don't know, so we just leave it as b. And then I'm going to draw my line. Simplify first. 1/2 times 8 is 4. Drop your plus b. And then we're going to drop our negative 5 over here. The opposite of positive 4 is negative 4, so I'm going to do a minus 4 on both sides. Negative 5 minus 4 is negative 9. Those cancel out, and we drop our b. So we just found our b value, which is our y-intercept, is negative 9. So we have our slope is 1/2. We found our y-intercept was negative 9, so we're going to go ahead and put it all together and say y equals 1/2 x minus 9. At this point, I would suggest you pause and try number 12 on your own and then come back when you're done. But we're going to go straight into it, and it's the same exact deal over here, so I'm going to go a little bit faster. So we have our first point, x1, y1, our second point, x2, y2, and we are going to start by finding your slope first. Slope is the most important. So we're going to say m is equal to, and we're using our equation from up here, y2, which is 44, minus y1, which is 18, over, x2, which is 6, minus x1, which is 2. Now, if you put this in your calculator, it's going to tell you 13 over 2, or 6.5 if you like the decimal. But keep in mind, when we do slope, we want to keep it as the fraction so we can see the rise over the run. So I would leave it as this. Don't change it to a decimal. So we just found our slope is 13 over 2. And then we're going to pick a point to find our b value. I would probably pick the first one because I don't want to have to do math with a 44 because that's a bigger number. So I'm going to pick this one, but if you picked this one, you should still get the same answer. So to find our b, we're going to say y equals, so 18 equals, m, which we just found was 13 over 2, times x, which remember, since we use this y, we have to use this x, so times 2, plus b, because we don't know it. And I'm going to draw my line. Simplify first. 13 over 2 times 2 is just 13. We're going to drop our plus b, and then you should have also dropped your 18. The opposite of positive 13 is negative 13, so I'm going to subtract 13 from both sides. 18 minus 13 is 5. Those cancel out, and we drop our v. So we just found our intercept. V is equal to 5, which means we are ready to put it all together into slope-intercept form. We will say y equals 13 over 2x plus 5. All right, we're going to do one more. Let's look at 13. So this one, we want to do the same thing where we write an equation, but they give us a table this time instead of 2 random points. Now I'm going to remind you that our table is just a set of a bunch of points. So this is a point, this is a point, this is a point, and this is a point. So a table just gives us 4 points, but remember we only need 2. So you can pick any 2 points you want. I would highly, highly suggest maybe don't pick these 2. And I'm sure you can guess the reason being is there's decimals. And I don't like to deal with decimals, so I would pick the ones that are whole numbers. But if you pick one of those, it will still get you the right answer. So remember, we need our slope and our intercept, and the slope is the most important, so I'm going to start with that first. So these are all of my x's, so I'm going to label this one x1 and x2. And then this is going to be y1 and y2. So when we go to find our slope, we're going to say m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You can go ahead and put that into your calculator, or -7 minus -8 is 1, and 4 minus 0 is 4. And 1/4 can't simplify any further, so we just found that our slope is 1/4. So step 1 is done. Step 2, kind of like we've been doing this whole time, we need to pick one of these points and plug it into y equals mx plus b to find our b value. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this one. I would say y equals m, which we just found, x plus b. And then I'm going to draw my line. Simplify first. 1/4 times 4 is just 1. So that becomes 1 plus b equals -7. I'm going to go ahead and subtract 1 from both sides. -7 minus 1 is -8 equals b. So I found my slope, I found my y-intercept, which means I'm ready to write my equation. I would say y is equal to 1/4 x minus 8. And before I move on, I think we could notice, remember we said an intercept always starts with a 0, like it should say 0, comma something. If you look at your table, it actually gave us the y-intercept right here, since it started with a 0. -8 was our intercept, and if you notice when we solved, we ended up getting -8. So I would always check the table first, because sometimes it'll give it to you. So if you were smart, you would have seen that first. Otherwise, you can go ahead and pick one and solve, and you'll still get the same answer even if you didn't notice. So if you look at 14, same deal, you're going to have to find your slope first, and then if you look at your table, your intercept isn't given because you don't have a 0 anywhere, which means you're going to have to do this anyways. So this is a special case that it happened to be on our table, so I would always check first, just in case. Go ahead and try number 14. I would pause the video here and give it a try, and then play it when you're ready to check your answer. I'm going to go through this one pretty quick because we've done this several times now. So to find your slope, you could have picked any 2 points you wanted. I'm just going to pick the first 2 because those look like bigger numbers to work with. So we could have said -16 minus -1 over 10 minus 5. And hopefully you found the slope was 3. If we use this, I'd use the first point, I guess, to go ahead and plug in. We'd say -1 equals 3 times 5 plus b, which would have given us -1 equals 15 plus b. And you subtract you subtract 15 from both sides and get -16 equals b. And again, I went fast because you were supposed to pause and do that on your own first. So if you put that together, y equals 3x minus 16.